What's going on, True Soldiers? It's Lil Bradford here, aka King Truth. It's a nice, warm, rather sunny day. 93 degrees here where I'm at. I hope everything's going good where you're at and you're having a good day. Today I want to talk on the subject of the common denominator of success. We'll speak on how successful people make it a habit to do what unsuccessful people or failures don't do. I'll start off by saying, really, I didn't feel like shooting this video or writing this paper this morning, but I did it anyways because for whatever reason, because I went to sleep late last night and didn't get the optimum amount of sleep that I make it a habit to do daily. And each night, I guess I didn't feel like really putting in the energy to do this seminar in class. But instead of saying, I won't do it, I made it a bright line to continue to help educate and teach in True Soldiers education here. I speak on the common denominator of success. I made it a habit to read daily autobiographies, self-development books, and good books on how to live the good life. And I guess I was in the search of what made people successful. And I found not only what made people successful, but why they do what they do. And I found a common denominator, and that common denominator is successful people do what, and make it a habit to do what failures don't like to do. And on top of that, at times, do what they don't feel like doing. If you think about it, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're correct. For people out there that have ever grown a garden or grew plants or flowers can relate with this. You plant a seed and you go out there and water it every day. And at first you don't see anything, and you don't see immediate growth or immediate results. You go out there and you keep watering, Then after a few days or weeks, you'll see that plant or flower growing and growing and growing from 6 inches, 7 inches, or 13 inches. You'll see it. After a while, reaches optimum growth. And once it's finished growing, then you pick that plant, you pick that plant or fruit or vegetable, whatever it may be, and then you experience the results and the good things or good life from your time of watering and putting in the habits of going back day by day to make that grow, to experience the end goal. and enjoy the results of your deeds and works. You have to enjoy the process. You, against common belief, you don't necessarily keep your eye on the prize. You keep your eye on the moment to moment, step by step habits that you create to get that end result prize. Keep the end result prize in mind, because that'll help drive you and motivate you to do what it takes that the failures don't like doing. And sometimes you don't like doing. But you'll have the steam to push, to drive that engine to get to the result that you set out to do at the beginning. A story, or matter of fact, an analogy. When you listen to music or go to the concert, you don't go there to hear the end, the final crash of the symphony or the music piece that you're listening to. You don't go there to hear the thing that built up to the final. You go there to enjoy the whole session from the beginning to the end. You know, if the ideal was to just experience the end result, you would have composers that just deduct the piece very fast to get to the end, so you can experience what you came to hear, if your ideal was to just focus on the end. In life, it doesn't work that way. While you were growing, and while you're still growing, notice that you start with kindergarten, you move on to first grade, you're getting to where you need to go, second grade, finish grade school, move on to high school. All right, it's coming. After high school, you can decide to go to college or do an apprenticeship or whatever it may be, internship. And after that, you are thrown out there into the world. Then you get on your job and you have a quota to meet. You meet that quota and you're like, it's coming. When I came for, the end result that you see, what I came for is arriving. Then one day you wake up about 40 years or so and be like, all right, it's here. And then you feel a bit disappointed because what you set out for, you feel the same way when you reach that. Because the idea is not to focus and keep your eye on the end prize. It's to enjoy the process, to sing and dance along the journey. You know, whether that journey ending is to be a successful person or to get to heaven, you sing and dance along the way and enjoy the process. One last analogy and story to drive this big idea home is one of the greatest coaches, considered one of the greatest coach by ESPN of all time, John Wooden. You know, he taught a few of the greatest, from Bill Walton to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He taught them not by having them wanting to be a superstar. He doesn't set out to be a superstar. He sets out from the beginning, the process. He taught them how to put on their socks before they could even get into the gym to practice. In the game, because for instance, if you don't put on your socks correctly, you'll have sores on your feet, and without creating the correct habits, you won't be able to go out there and run with a sore on your feet. So you have to start from the beginning and enjoy the process. Throughout the goals, throughout the games, they at times his teams would reach the championship game. And in that championship game, the players' mindsets was not to look at the score and keep track of the score, but it was to focus on what they did in practice, running each drill by each drill, each habit they created by each habit, step by step, enjoying the process. Because if your eyes are on the score and what you want it to be, you're not focusing on what you need to do and run that play drill by drill, step by step in the process to get that win, that WIN, winning goal in mind. So if you focus on what you need to do now, the habits that you create now, it'll in turn correlate with the final score, which is most likely going to be a win if you took it step by step by step. And speaking on wins, I have a great acronym on win. WIN. W, what I is important in now. What's important now? We need to win. On to the next big idea. What drives your show? What drives your show should be not pleasing results, not pleasing methods, but pleasing results, which bring us back to the common denominator of success, which is successful people do what failures don't do. Successful people make it habits to do what failures don't like to do. So not necessarily having your eye set on the prize, you want to have your eye set on the methods, but what pleases you should be what you have in the back of your mind, the result, and not the methods. Because if you focus on the methods pleasing you, you won't have the motivation to do what you need to do and sometimes don't like to do to get the pleasing result. So, for instance, you have to get to the point of doing what you don't like to do or failures don't like to do is to have a purpose in mind, a strong why. It begins with your perception. Like I said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're usually right. So it starts with your perception, your why. When you're on your mission to get that pleasing result, you have to tie your mission, your habits, missions, into what your big overall purpose is. That'll give you motivation to continue on that mission, to complete your purpose. An equation for a good equation for mission is what you expect and what you value over impulses. You have to have willpower. You have to have willpower to have self-control over the impulses that don't result in your purpose. So motivation is what you value, and as well as what you expect. So you develop those habits. Two things here. You develop those habits day by day, starting each morning, to build up the steam and motivation you need to conquer that purpose and get that win. A good analogy on motivation I'll present to you is in order to create. What's going on? How you doing? Shooting a video.
No, sorry.
You good? In order to create that steam that you need, the boiling point of water is 212 degrees. You don't reach boiling point and create steam at 200 degrees or 210 degrees. You have to get to 212 degrees. Point being, people are looking and set out to get to their purpose, but they don't have a strong motivation and the habits installed daily to get there. Just as if a locomotive needs steam to drive it, they don't have the steam to keep their engine running. You have to have a strong why, and you have to install the habits to continue to drive your engine on to your pathway to your purpose. That leads into one more analogy on this big idea. If you're setting out to chop down a tree and you have a dull blade, that may take 4 hours to chop down that tree, and extended time and energy you have to use from trial and error, opposed to simulating the future.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You have to prepare yourself and set out the time before to set out the time before. Excuse me, I lost track of my train of thought. But basically what I'm trying to say is, instead of spending 4 hours on chopping down that tree with a dull blade, prepare and install the habits ahead of time and sharpen that blade for an hour, and then go out to chop the tree down, and that'll probably take an hour, and the accumulation of 2 hours opposed to 4 hours. 2 hours with the sharp blade and preparation and motivation through habits installed daily, and 4 hours with a dull blade by just going out there and doing it. Most people don't like to prepare for what they had set out. Which brings us back to our reoccurring point and theme here. Successful people do and make habits of what failures don't like to do. That leads us into our next big idea. Stop avoiding. Basically, the idea here is it's easier to be settled in to the hardships of poor living than it is to make a better day, a new day. Excuse the old school language that I used there, but point being is it's easier to get comfortable with limitations in your current life than it is to change your habits and do the things that you actually don't feel like doing. So stop avoiding what you need to do to get done what you ultimately want to get done. 3 big questions here. What uncomfortable things could you do that you've been avoiding? How would your life be different if you started doing these things constantly? And 3, how can you dial up the heat on your purpose to make it to a little each day to make it easier to get it done, to rock what you need to do, to stun on them haters? What can you do? Think about that. Think about those 3 questions. Write them down. Write your answer. And then ingrain that. Embody that. Integrate that. Incorporate that into your life and live it. Because we are what we repeatedly do, in the words of Buddha. We form habits, and habits form futures. Postscript here, P.S. My purpose is to learn and then teach. Learn from teaching and to help develop and inspire future leaders. That's my purpose. One last question for you, spotlight on you. Can you define your purpose, your why, what it starts with, in 1 to 2 sentences? You have to know your why, which leads me into a whole nother thing I'll speak on and give a class on later, which is outcome planning and 3D planning. It starts with your why. I give you a look into my notes and what I like to do daily to help lead myself on to the good life and continue to live the way I want to live through my purpose. It starts with your why. 3D planning. As you can see here, the first D would be define. You have to define specifically what your why is. The second D is divide. You have to break down your big overall purpose into small missions that you install habits to conquer those missions, those battles, to win the war, your overall purpose. For instance, I give a metaphor. If you have a big boulder, that big purpose, that big idea, that big business plan, that big program you want to create, you have to take that boulder, put a sledgehammer to it, and break it down into pieces. You break it down into missions. That'll take you into the third D here, which is do it daily. Do those dailies, those missions, those habits, those pebbles that you broke down daily, and install those habits to create, to move towards what your overall why is, and put those pebbles back together to create that boulder. And the second part of this is your outcome planning. You have to know why. You have to start with your purpose, why you want it to get done. In outcome planning, you can put a plus on one side and a minus on the other side. The positives on what'll happen if you do set out to do these goals daily. And then the negative side, the minus, what'll come if you don't set out to do these goals and habits daily. When you create that outcome planning on the negative side, a couple things will jump out at you, and you'll take those negatives and turn them into positives. And then you'll have a strong why and a specific why on what you need to do mission by mission, step by step, daily, to set out to get that win. That brings us to our final, last but not least, big idea is make a resolution, follow, repeat, and create a new world. It's a quote from the author Albert Ian Gray. He says, if you continue the process of making each morning and keeping it each day, you will finally wake up one morning a different person in a different world, and you will wonder what happened to the old me, and you'll wonder what happened to the world I used to live in. It's nothing better than going out and doing what you set out to do, even when you felt like not doing it, and then getting that pleasing result, that final win from setting out to do what you put out to do. That's the end of this session here. I'll be putting together a seminar and class on habits and purpose. I wrote a few papers on that. A few of y'all may have seen that on my social media pages. You can go on there and follow me, and I'll continue posting each day to set out my purpose. And P.S. one last thing. By using active memory recall, which is the best way to make something stick, use your active memory recall to answer what is the common denominator of success. What was it? Without rewinding to see what it was, what was it? That's right. Successful people do and make a habit of what failures don't like to do, and even at times do what they don't like to do. Alright, true soldiers, I salute you for finishing this video. I hope you have a good day. Take from this message, continue to have a good month and year and lifetime.